abstractions, and there's these huge generalizations like anger, what is that? Or trust, or really respect. And when you start to speak to people and find out what that means for them, I don't think there's one definition really that's the same, And so we were trying to put into words these feeling concepts.
Right.
And it is difficult. So I think we need the mind and the feeling.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. We
Yeah.
need to integrate. And
And
you talk a lot about integration. And I mean, your work is about integrating mind, body, and soul. So if I came to you and I was one of those people who was not living consciously, constantly reacting to the triggers and overthinking, problem solving, analyzing, what would be the first thing that you would ask me to do to start to turn the corner there?
Sure. I would ask you to stop and breathe. Now, that's a totally present function. And thanks, because you helped me find the thread from before. We often go to our mind for the answers, but we need to realize this is a closed database. The mind, like we're talking specifically now, the cognitive, and I think we're seeing this with a lot of mental illnesses, is this, the brain is basically overloaded now, it's kind of reached the capacity in the sense of how we're using it. And so we need to step and start using these the physical body, the intuition that comes through that,
Yeah.
So yes, I spent many years trying to find out why I was doing things. And that was like, the dog running after its tail. I just went round and round and round.
Yes.
And when I stopped and said, look, I don't really need to know why I'm doing this. I just need to focus on what I want. What is it I want? And immediately the emotion opens up. It's like you put the motion on pause, because otherwise you get on this roller coaster, or, and just sucked into this going round and round. And that's the things with words. They can be hypnotic. So I use questions a lot. Like, people say, oh my God, that sounds exhausting. And I just say, well, I'm thinking, 50,000 thoughts a day. So I might as well be choosing them wisely and
Yes.
consciously. Because for me, that is freedom. I am choosing. And there's a great sense of freedom in responsibility, because it's my ability to respond. And I'm very fierce about that. I will fight, because for me, that is my sovereign right. And I want that. I want that freedom to be able to choose whatever the situation. Sometimes people say, yeah, well, you can't always choose. And I love a quote by Michelle Pfeiffer. I think it was, not sure if it is her, but it was allocated to her. And she said, you always have a choice. You just might not like the one you have to choose. And that was so powerful, because sometimes life throws us, curveballs or situations that in our right mind we would never have chosen. And yet in that moment we can still choose. And so it's about really stepping out of that victimness. And I think emotions, as they are, if you're not questioning your emotions, I think you can be an emotional victim. You become a victim to the mass consciousness definition. And I'm really fierce about individuality. I know a lot of people said, oh, are you a feminist? No, I'm not. I'm an individualist. I will fight fiercely for that. I think we all have the right to be masters of our life. So if you came to me, I actually would I love the body, because there's no lying, there's no, it's just really simple with the body. It is what it is, truly. And I have a gift. I can hear bodies, and I have this conversation with them, and it just bypasses that mental block totally. And I can remove the energetic imprint, because everything is energy. Our body, our brain functions along electromagnetic fields, and that's why we're having these impacts with the cell towers and things like that, because it's interfering with our own biological function in, and we have to find ways to raise our vibration so that we're out of those fields or put protection up.
So go back and tell me, for the listeners who don't understand what you mean by energetic imprint, tell us
Yes.
more.
Well, everything is energy, and so when you focus on something, you actually are applying an imprint. The Hopis observe that it's that saying, where energy goes, where awareness goes, energy flows, and where energy goes, awareness goes.
Mm-hmm.
And Western researchers have, and I talk about this in my book, Fearlessly Alone, have observed that by focusing on things, we actually influence their behavior. And so the body and the brain are kept in signals all the time that are above our, let's say, normal operating consciousness. And that's why we have to challenge, the emotions, the thoughts we have, in not challenge in a nasty way, but just say, is this mine?
Mm-hmm.
Does this work for me? Ask questions. Because the body remembers everything. The brain is recording everything, whether you're, and we can see this in coma patients too, and that's why they encourage you talking to them. Although their ability to function or retrieve information is different from a conscious person, they do still have awareness. So the body the brain locks in the message on a chemical, in the body it's chemical, but it's energetic. If you know your physics, then you break it down, every chemical component, it's made up of different components. So that's the energy imprint. The great thing with energy is when you direct it, and that's why we need consciousness, because consciousness directs energy. Then the energy obeys, and a lot of people get confused. That's why there are no polarities in energy. If the person directs it, the energy obeys, so that's why it behooves us to know our emotions, what's behind them, or what's our agenda really. And yeah, just work on releasing the energy around it, in the sense directing
excellent.
it to what we want. And law of attraction has kind of touched on it, but I think there's other levels. And in neurosemantics, this is what they focus on. It's the meaning, because as emotive beings, we classify everything by what it means to us. It's a hierarchy of values. And for myself, I found, beliefs are kind of like the tools we use to put into place what we want. But the values, that's why we have to look at our values, because that's where our meaning. And I'm not saying meaning's wrong. I'm saying be conscious of what things mean to you and be willing to change that, because if we're not flexible, evolution shows, if you're not flexible, you will, life moves on. So if and you stop the flow. So everywhere where we've agreed with anything, it locks it in to our brain, our body, our cells start to respond, and then the intuition, I find, is beyond, it's beyond just the physical, and that's where we get these aha moments that come through, and to question them, and they seem to be beyond time. But yeah, so everything is an energetic imprint, because we align or agree with it. So it's again the vibration. As soon as it's like a radio station. When you tune into that station, you're tuned in, and that's an electromagnetic imprint. Then if
Yes,
you want to change the station, you got to turn the dial. But to do that, you kind of got to know, you know, you ask questions. Do I want something else? You know, is this radio station giving me the right information? Or you can just be curious and say, oh, I want to listen and see what else is going on. But that's the electromagnetic print. It's where you're in alignment with that specific vibration. And so when I work with people, because a lot of this is subconscious, you know, is the body is just so willing to move on. It's often the mind that keeps on going back, like the dog chasing its tail and saying, no, things have to stay this way. Things have to stay this way. And asking questions doesn't mean things have to change, but what it will mean is that where you are consciously and in full presence rather than just being a default.
So let me, I'm going to summarize a couple of things. This is such an important idea. So consciousness directs energy, you guys. I hope that my listeners really are soaking that in. It's one of the biggest reasons for this practice of awareness and consciousness is that you can direct that energy that you're talking about. You don't have to be a victim of everything. You actually have, like you say, with the consciousness, you can choose. So I wanted to summarize these beautiful tools that you mentioned, and I actually got a 1, 2, 3 out of it. 1, stop and breathe. 2, ask a question. Like you're saying, questions are so powerful. What is it that I actually want? Was the one that you mentioned first. And then 3, choose at that point. You get to choose, right? So when you say choose, you mean choose the thought, or do you mean, what do you mean about the choice we have at that point?
Yeah, well, I've found that, like for me, my keyword is joy or fun. You know, that is, I want to feel that, because I say, look for the essence of what you want.
Got it.
Because that opens it up, because things are energy. And if we, you know, it's like when someone's dating and you ask them, like, you know, do you have a specific type? And they say, yeah, you know, blue eyes, blonde hair, but not too tall. And that's like, what? You know, like, what if they don't look like that? You know, love can show up in a different package completely, but because we're so fixed on this is what it's got to look like. So yeah, that's what I mean. It's, what is the essence? So, you know, I want fun. I want my projects to be fun. I want to have fun. I want to play. I don't want it to be work. I want to play. So I look for that. And just recently I realized I'd kind of gotten off stream, you know, and I thought, I'm not playing anymore. I've gotten too serious, you know, and I thought, no. I'm going for play. And I set my intention right. Now I'm going to play. And so I put on my alert for play. And it's amazing what starts to show up. So that's the direction. Consciousness, I'm looking for playful experiences. And then people start to show up, programs, books, you know, opportunities. My humor just kind of brightens up. So there is a response. So always check, you know, if you're not getting the response sometimes, try and tweak that question. Because I've really found the more precise and calibrated your question is, it'll help. So like, why is what I call a dog chasing its tail question. And we all say, why me? Well, that didn't get me very far until I changed the question. You know, so it's about really playing with the words, finding the words that work for you, and you will feel it, because our cells respond. It's kind of like, you know, a thoroughbred that's waiting at the beginning of the race, and it's got all this energy and it's just waiting for that gate to open, and consciousness opens the gate, you know, and then you're off. So
Nice.
yeah, so that's what I mean by choose. And when you breathe, you become present.
Yes.
And I know people roll their eyes like, what, I'm breathing. I say, like, yeah, but breathe, be the breath. So choose the essence of what it is you want. Don't focus on, oh, my life's this or that, or all the things you don't want. What is it you want? I want to play, and really engage into that feeling. I've really found that it is that. And I did struggle for quite a while getting to that place. So take the time you need. And that's why integration is important. You know, baby